purposes.
So I'm Joni, and I'm somebody who works here at the Children's Theatre, and I just want to say thank you to all of you coming, and especially thank you to the Firesign Theatre, who has agreed to come in here and do this as a benefit for the Children's Theatre. So one of the things we're doing right now is we have a matching grant that's out in the community. So everything that you've given today will be counted as a donation toward that grant. So your $10 will become $20, which is very exciting in these economic times. And I also have this really lovely photograph that has come to light. I just want to show it to you because it's really, I don't want to mess with it though too much. But it's from 2005. And so whoever today would like to make a contribution, whoever makes the highest contribution to the theater today, we would award this picture to as a gift. And if anybody wants to talk to us right after the show, Shelley Marshani, our managing director, is here, I'm here, and we can happily talk to you about the Children's Theatre, what we do here, what we're about, and how you might help us. So, okay? And so, I just want to say one thing about the Firesign Theatre. I'm getting hot up here. And that is, I think, the best quote about them, and I'm sure you've heard this, but Library of Congress called them the Beatles of comedy, and thank goodness they didn't break up, you know? So I'm really glad they're here with us.
I think they may be doing that right now.
So
just keep hoping.
all you need is love. All you need is love. So I'm going to introduce David Osmond. He's gonna
How long ago was this that we did this film? About 6 years ago? Something like that. On or about. And we were given the opportunity by Steve Sandoz, possessor of a wonderful name, if you remember the early days of Pharmacopoeia, Psychedelica, Steve Sandoz. And anyway, Steve worked for an advertising company called Wyden and Kennedy. And he got some bucks together and wanted to do a movie with us, which he wrote, called God's Clowns. And I always felt that he gave that name to us. You know, we can now advertise ourselves as God's Clowns, as you will shortly see in this 13.5-minute movie shot on the top of Mount Hood in one day, and you'll see actually the passage of the sun. Long day on top of Mount Hood. But it will pass very quickly for you guys, and we actually have not seen it since then because we just had it come. Here it comes.
I guess the order began some 10 years ago. We've kept a pretty low profile, so not many people even know we exist. It was actually founded by Brother Marty, who before he began the order was a tax attorney from Akron named Arnie Branch. Arnie was a good enough tax attorney. I mean, he loved the tax code. But no matter how many IRS rulings he successfully challenged, he always felt that something was missing from his life. And then he saw young Frankenstein.
Dr. Frankenstein.
From the moment he got his first look at Marty Feldman in those dark robes with those crazy eyes, well, he knew what he had to do. He was called, His purpose in life was now clear: to establish a religious order dedicated to making God laugh. He took the name of a great comedian, in this case, Marty Feldman, and with the help of a little eye surgery, transformed himself into Brother Marty. It wasn't easy for Brother Marty at first. Needless to say, he lost most of his tax clients, and he had a hard time navigating the furniture. But he persevered. He recruited others who felt the same calling. And then, one magical day, he found a winning lottery ticket on the street. I think Brother Marty just cracked the Lord up. Now, there are 20 of us, all living here, on this mountain, all dedicating every waking hour of every day to amusing God. In this pursuit, we have shunned all worldly possessions and taken the names of the great comedians who have gone before us. I am called Brother Shecky.
A lot of the younger brothers, when they first come here, are a bit confused about our true purpose. They'll try to make the other brothers laugh or crack themselves up. Usually takes a few weeks before they understand that the only person that we're here to entertain is God. There was an unfortunate incident not so long ago with Brother Soupy.
Brother Soupy, what are you doing in there? Brother Soupy, let us in.
Break the door down. Brother Soupy, amusing yourself with sight gags. Take those things off immediately. For penance, you must do 50 spit takes and 30 pratfalls. And make them funny. There are rules here, just as there are in any religious order. No sight gags. No working the crowd. No making the other brothers laugh. We've outlawed whoopee cushions because they're not honest. True comedy comes from here. Or from here. A fart is undeniably funny, so we exist entirely on a diet of beans and cheese.
Oh Lord, bless this food, and let it produce in us the flatulence which you find so amusing. Our life here is simple. Our days are filled with little things we hope the Lord finds amusing.
Today's message is from the Book of Henny, chapter 5, verses 6 through 9. She is so fat. She is so fat that when she stands at a bus stop, people try to board her. She is so fat that when she sits around the house, she sits around the house. She is so fat that when she pierced her ears, gravy came out. She is so fat, she has other smaller fat women orbiting her. Ha, 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 ha.
Others of us may sit for hours doing spit takes. Some brothers may spend a whole day working on a single perfect pratfall. And when we need refreshment, we can always count on a tasty piece of watermelon, thanks to Brother Gallagher.
For extra income, once a month we gather all the brothers together to record laugh tracks for popular sitcoms.
Okay, now, today's recording session is for the Suddenly Susan show. So, we're going to have to make it sound a little funnier than usual. First, let's have a big body laugh. Very good, huh? Now, a little naughty laugh. Like Susan just said something a little naughty. Oh, and please, no farting. The network won't accept it. Excellent. Finally, a medium laugh, swelling to a large laugh, and ending in applause.
When I slip on a banana peel, I'm not just falling on my ass. I'm falling on my ass for God.
Keeping the vow of celibacy our order requires is really not that difficult for Brother Urkel and myself. Most women just find us too annoying to be around.
Dear Lord, please allow this belch to amuse.
All the elder brothers spend a bit of time each day working with the initiates to help them learn some of the basic skills that our order calls for.
All right, take the pie and pow. You've got it?
I think so.
Pow!
Sure, it takes a lot of work with these young ones, but that's the only way we can be certain that our good deeds will carry on.
Our brothers come to our order from many places, many walks of life. Brother Jerry here used to be contemplating a career in merger arbitrage.
Hey, Whitey! You...
Now, he serves God.
As you might imagine, the Lord is always in the mood for a good joke.
So, this guy walks into a gay bar holding a kangaroo, a chicken, and a rubber duck.
What's the deal with sandwiches? There's no sand in them, and they're not made by witches. Lord, I beseech thee, what's the deal with that?
Oh, Lord, show me a sign. Pull my finger.
Yes, our days really pass quite quickly here. And before you know it, it's time for Vespers and our nightly responsive reading by the fire.
Very good. Now, Brother Mo will lead us in a reading. Brother Mo.
Thank you, Brother Groucho. Let us begin. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Alaska Bear.
Alaska Bear who?
Alaska Bear, but he may not know the answer.
Ha, 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 ha.
I imagine people are puzzled by our choice to dedicate our every waking moment to the amusement of the Lord, but the way we see it, he's faced every day with war and poverty and pain and suffering and guilt and contrition, and people always asking for things. We just think he could use a good laugh once in a while.
We get the funniest. People say we monkey around, but we're too busy chanting to put anybody
Where are all the children? That's what I'm
Where were them?
benefit for the children. Okay. Young in heart, I guess, is more like it. Okay.
All right, we're here we are. So
Yes,
you can this is your one chance to get everybody to on the same stage and ask those questions you've always
Do you
wanted
wear
to
contact
ask.
lenses? Yes.
Yes,
I do.
We once had
I don't want to make anybody nervous. I'll put it in.
we once had a terrific sketch. What was it where Phil loses his contact lens in the middle of the show?
Wasn't it the...
Did we-
Oh, God, what was that?
Did we do it in danger
I
sometime?
don't remember. There was something up there.
You know.
Oh, yes. Like the scene, brother. Oh, sorry, I missed the chair.
We've traditionally just assigned him the comedy stuff. The rest of the intellectual thing.
Yeah, somebody has to be funny. It's a dirty job.
Okay, anybody. Because
We can't see you.
So,
Right,
yell
so-
out.
This gentleman right
What are you guys up to?
What are we up to? 3 a day?
Two at night, I
Well,
think.
we have committed ourselves because other people have tried to commit us. Oh, that's much better. We've committed ourselves to doing some touring. And since now 3 of the members, these guys, all live in your area, and I don't, I'm pretty much leaving it to them and just trying to make myself available when I am to, participate. So they should talk about how they're doing it. And we also have a colleague named Maureen Weston, who's been helping us put it together.
So we've got is she
Should
here?
be here any
She
minute.
is arriving at any moment. Yeah, we're doing a show we're doing 2 shows. These were the 2 dates that were available when we did our show in Los Angeles. We did 4 at a small theater in LA. We had such a good time. We got back here and said, okay, when can we play with?
Well, it started in Monterey.
Well, that's
It
right.
started in Monterey. A fellow named Warren Dewey has a beautiful theater called the Golden State Theater. Beautiful theater that he's restored there. And he's a great pal of Firesign. He had a studio in Santa Monica and actually produced our Fools in Space show for XM Radio. So we had a long and delightful history with Warren, and then he went up and took over this theater. So that was kind of what kicked off.
Yeah, he wanted us. He just wanted us to play this theater. So
Yep.
we decided, okay, we will get together.
Let's do it.
Big old house, one of those
Beautiful
big old
house.
houses. And we had a great time there. It was a one-off show. It was very hard to get people to Monterey immediately after the economy had collapsed.
Yeah, right.
Traveling more than 10 miles in California it was over, unless you were furloughed from your job, in which case you couldn't afford to do it anyway. So, but we had a great time, and then we did the 4 dates at the Barnstable in Los Angeles in a small house, so that for the first time we didn't have to carry props, costumes, and a whole lot of other things beyond our own selves and the scripts we hold in our hands. And it was appropriate then to come here and try an even slightly smaller house than the LA house. But who wouldn't want to play Wicca, because it's such a great little theater.
I know for a fact that a lot of you people have seen us perform in our larger shows. How many have seen us do shows before? Yeah, and you've seen the big shows where we had costumes and lights and flash pots. Any of you? Yeah, flash pots. Remember? And balloons.
Our one effect, although we had a balloon.
And you had an exploding hat. Phil had an exploding hat when we broke the president, which we rigged out of a hat that Jimmy Durante wore in, what was it, Peter? It was a W.C. Fields copy.
Imitation.
Imitation in the big parade or something like that, which I recently found in a trade magazine in L.A. had sold for $31,000 to some
did we
collector.
lose it?
I have no idea.
And we knew it was ours because it had been cut
I
around
cut it
the top.
to rig it so that snakes and things would come out of the top.
Well, we should put in a police report.
I agree. I wrote to them about it, and I said, first of all, it's not W.C. Fields' hat. They had a picture of W.C. Fields, and I said, it wasn't his hat. It was Jimmy Durante's. So we got him there, but of course, there's no sign. It's just silent.
They've already collected the 31,000.
They got the 31. Somebody got it.
Here's to them.
Yeah. So to just wrap that up, we're looking for more
hats.
dates and more hats along the way.
We're going to play Kirkland. 23rd, 24,
22nd, 23.
22nd, 23rd, a Friday, Saturday at the end of the month, and on Sunday we're going to go do 2 shows in Tacoma. So we're going to cover this area pretty thoroughly.
The really big thing about these shows that we're doing for Monterey On is that these are the first shows we've ever produced on our own. We've never been small businessmen particularly, and now we are. And this is the first time we've ever invested our own money and done everything exactly the way we wanted. Everybody you see working on the show, Mo Taylor, who's here, is been in on the ground up and has created. Taylor, for instance, has created the sound design virtually by himself. I mean, we're the theoretical masters of sound, and he's
Taylor Jessen, ladies and gentlemen.
He's telling us what to do.
He doesn't have to stand up because he's taller than all of us.
So that's a huge, it's boring, particularly that part of it, but for me that's the biggest fun to actually see us actually combining fart jokes and business in these later years. It's turning out, it's doing really well. I mean, I can't believe how much money we can suddenly make doing this. After many years of working for promoters, and all very nice and everything like that, but we just don't make anywhere near as much money as we do this way.
And in this economy, that's a really good idea. Since we've mentioned Taylor, another aspect of what Taylor has done for us as archivist, he is the official Firesign Theatre archivist, knows more about us than we know about ourselves.
Or could possibly remember.
Or could remember.
Or care about.
Or, yeah. But he has assembled over the last 10 years or so the entire archive of Firesign Theatre radio on the air from 1960.
We've got everything from 70 to 72.
70 to 72.
70 hours worth of 3 improvisational radio shows we did. Dear Friends, Firesign Theatre Radio, Hour, and Let's Eat. And he's got them, and he's cleaned them up, he's produced them, he's done the whole thing, archived them. They're ready to go.
He's taken most of the humor out of it, so doesn't offend anybody.
63 of those hours is me shouting, "Hey, I'm Les Thompson, and here's another."
People have listened to you never listen to the thing. The wonderful thing about radio is you never have to hear it back again.
Yeah, right.
72 hours of radio facing us.
How did we do that?
But that's an amazing period in LA radio where you could really do anything. It started with Peter's Radio Free Oz show in 66, and in 67 we haven't put together all of our shows yet from 1967.
Can I just
But
throw
you can
out
throw
to
yeah,
our
sure.
audience, please spread the word. There's a Firesign period that we dearly love, and which has been bootlegged extensively, the Magic Mushroom shows. There are perhaps 12 of these half-hour, 20-minute programs. They are out there in the world. If there is to be a box set, and we really think there should, we are seeking the best surviving recordings of the Magic Mushroom shows. So please go to firesigntheatre.com and check out the Got Firesign window. Or if you know someone who may have some stuff, point them there. That's where people can write to Firesign if they have home recordings.
I still find it quite amazing that we were so careless about keeping track of all our stuff,
Well, it wasn't that we were so careless, is that every one of those shows that we did was the reel of tape was stolen out of the collection of the shows.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, we lost all of our performances.
We don't know who stole them.
We don't know.
They're probably going to be sold for $31,000.
Yeah, it's like W.C. Fields rare recording.
Hell no, those aren't Firesign Theatre. That's Jimmy Durante.
That's my hat.
But of course, for those of you who perhaps don't know our history, that was the beginning of our working our comedy chops together, inspired by the style of the Goon shows. And when Peter took his Radio Free Eye show into a live format at this wonderful club over there in North Hollywood, it was before it was North Hollywood. It was just then No Hollywood. We would do these little half-hour comedy presentations as part of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, and speaking of Radio Free Oz,
well,
it's about to appear again. So
yeah.
One question has elicited a lot of responses.
What are you doing on the radio now?
Good question.
Well, Radio Free Oz initially launched in Los Angeles in 1966 on Pacifica Radio, and at that time, FM was an extraordinary experience to people who knew AM, and FM at that time was they were just playing nothing but dead Germans on the station. And so along comes Radio Free Oz and creates alternative radio. It was a huge freeing experience, and FM became free FM. Well, now we have the same experience. We have radio, but now we have web radio. And web radio is universal. It's always drive time somewhere on the net. It's available. It's not subject to the FCC. That's not the issue in this case. And I'm bringing Radio Free Oz back on the air. And sometime in February, I have to push it back, maybe February 13th. And I'm operating out of radio station KWPA in Coopville. And the studio is in the harbor master's office at the end of the
So if any boats start going around,
Peter, I could just call you on the telephone there in the studio.
Oh yes, yeah, just go. No, they don't have a line. You can. I can use my iPhone. You can't call. You can call me. And it's uninsulated, so it's uninsulated radio, and it's right there on Penn Cove, where the greatest muscles in the world. So it's all muscle radio. And the idea is
They've already got $100,000 worth of advertising slogans out there.
Right.
It's only been there 2 days.
Well, it's actually peer-to-peer radio. But it's not peerless, because without peer, I'm responsible. So the idea is that you'll be able to hear it 2 ways: live, either live stream if you're there at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, wherever you are, wherever.
You could be in the stream and listen to it.
Because we'll try to create enough bandwidth so that a lot of people can listen to it live, and then of course you can stream it in archive or download it and podcast it. And we think this is going to be a marvelous way to get the Firesign Theatre's that special kind of humor back on the air. My idea of fun is working with these guys, and therefore any opportunity I can take to do it in any format, I will do it.
So when would you be on the air, and when would we have to be in front of a machine?
Well,
are we involved?
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask that question. When did that happen? That's what I wanted to know.
I wanted to make sure it was real before I came forward, and I didn't even use your names to get on the air. I just said the Firesign Theatre. I didn't say
You just said several shellfish will appear.
I have this vision in the summer, with the sun shining on Penn Cove. It's just absolutely beautiful. All these boats coming up and mooring around the edge of the pier.
Well, no, actually, it's the pier. There's a walkway around it. So I'm sitting here. I'm not this far from the window. So tourists are going to go right by. Yeah, and look in. It's got wonderful authenticity of place.
Northern exposure.
Northern exposure. So it'll be for those who are, if we can get the guys live in the Harbor Master office,
We could just
live radio.
We could just
clam up.
Well, David, you know, we both live on Whidbey, so I can always get him, but you get everybody else by you know.
It'll be renamed. Yeah, by what? What do we have to
by phone?
By clamophone?
No, the iPhone. No, you know, call by the iPhone.
Lots of phone.
Well, it's kind of
You could Skype them.
Yeah,
Skype.
We could. I have Skype suddenly, and the camera that you gave me works.
Oh, it does,
Yes,
doesn't
we have
it?
to figure this out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yike.
We're going to put a lot of funny stuff down.
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
Sure.
there's
Mr. Ishakwa.
Mr. Austin,
Yes.
40 years ago, you told an interviewer, if you can laugh at something that has no power over you, you still believe that?
Yes, because it just sounds good, doesn't it?
It does.
Now I'm going to think about it. Let's see, what was that? It's good, isn't it? I mean, actually, when you really think back, when I really think back to,
Which isn't too far.
Peter said,
You can't go too far.
bad brain. Peter's right about FM radio, freeform radio, what we actually came out of, what we actually, how
Created.
God's name we were created. These four odd people that, in a sense, had never met each other.
Four
had
is
it not
even.
been for the radio. Yeah. We came out of. We also came out of this odd period that we've all, obviously, looking at our age, went through, of turmoil and foment and revolution, etc. And God knows all those words come rushing back at you in that world. And obviously, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, they're just blathering away. I'm 28 or 30 years old or whatever the hell I was, trying to talk about power, which is what, and then we would sit in writing sessions and try to work out the idea of power in terms of our work and all that, the grid and power and this and that. And it all got down to the feeling. Peter and I were both incarcerated by the Army for a while.
At that time.
Yeah.
At the time we were in the Army, reserves.
Everybody was running scared. Everybody, we as a
Beat the
generation
Reaper.
were scared shitless.
They called Beat the Reaper when the draft at Yale. In the alumni magazine, they used to have this thing called Beat the Reaper, which was when, you know, picking numbers out of a hat. So, you know.
So we all tend to now that period of time, the period of time we all kind of rise out of, is seen as kind of cutesy and charming. The way people look at the 50s now, and, you know, aren't all those adorable hippies and all that stuff and all this stuff, and everybody forgets the amount of fear and concern, particularly among intelligent people.
It's quite true. Males, particularly amongst males.
Yeah. And,
Draftable males.
we were trying to sort of ride right at the edge of commerciality and non-commerciality, and trying to make sense of what the hell we thought about anything, and still try to make comedy records at the same time. True. Thanks, Kat. I hope that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Question for you guys. It has to do with like archiving and things. I used to listen to Mr. Bergman's show from Pacifica in Pittsburgh from a friend of mine who was blind, but he was into ham radio. So he had a ham friend in California hook up, you know, and broadcast it by a ham wave to Pittsburgh so I could hear this, and that was like our special time together.
Really?
And then he would roll a reel-to-reel, he would run a 2-track and roll reel on that. And when
Do
he
you still
passed
have
away,
those?
I wondered what happened to them, but all of the magnetic tape had just decomposed after a time, and it just all flaked apart. And that's what broke my heart, because I was hoping to get, I was like, anything that he has, I would have been honored to keep with me, but that was something that shows that, you know, that magnetic tape is not, you know, a permanent.
Oh, no.
It's not, you know.
Everything. No.
Yeah,
all this digital stuff is going to go fairly quickly.
All my aircheck
everything.
tapes and stuff are useless because they're flaking, you know, things like that, and it wasn't that long ago that I quit radio.
Yeah, everything I did at NPR just fallen off the plastic. I mean, it's on the floor.
Yeah.
That was bad tape. 80, 81, 82, 83, 84.
The ASF wasn't doing their job, you know. So.
One mil tape.
1 mil tape. Oh yeah, and if you didn't have a break on your Ampex, that 1 mil tape would go. Wire recording.
That's right. That's right.
What about all those horrible splices where you'd be?
That was my scholarship job when I was at Yale. I spliced a show called Yale Reports. And down in the basement there, the Audiovisual Center.
We didn't think it was hard work. I mean, we spliced it. We never sat there and said, God, I wish we didn't have to do all this splicing. It was, that was fun. That was magic.
It was Cutting edge.
Little pieces.
And when we used to produced early on Radio Free Oz, before we actually got in Columbia Studios, when I would do these sound collages from the top of the week, I remember once I had to put crickets behind someone, or maybe it was for the Indian show that we were doing. And we'd sit there with two guys with pencils with tape, like maybe 15 feet of tape in a loop, going over the pencils through the thing as a continuous loop to be able to record one track that way. I mean, GarageBand, eat your heart out. It was just, it was. But we didn't think that was strange. We thought that was great. We got the results. People loved it.
The other people that were doing this were creating electronic music. Luning and Ushachevsky and all those guys. That's
Xenakis.
Backwards
and it wasn't funny. No one said it was funny. John Cage thought it was funny. They called it dry wit. Yeah, it was dry. It was dry.
Any questions?
Where'd you get the names of some of your albums? Don't Crush the Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers.
Well, I can
driving.
Yes.
We're driving in a painted, Jack Poet painted Volkswagen before they were
psychedelically painted
before
Volkswagen.
they were stolen away from us because Jack unfortunately nearly went to jail over the whole thing. And
we got
the cars
dehorsed.
were all repossessed.
That's another whole story.
Another story.
Unhorsed.
But before that happened,
We're driving back from the studio. We're writing Dwarf. We're trying to write a movie. We're thinking about movies for the first time. And I vaguely remember being in the back seat, and I remember David saying, "Don't crush that dwarf, hand me the
he
flag."
said David said something. I remember it being on the trip out to playing in Tahunga. I just have a different.
Do we tell that story? Oh, did we already tell that story in the Metzger interview?
No, I don't think so. But well, in any case, we were talking about it, and David said, "Well, something like, don't crush that dwarf, hand me the pliers."
Yeah, but I remember it.
Somebody write that down.
I remember that I think it was inspired by a piece of sheet music, which was something like "Crush that dwarf Hun." Remember that?
I tell you.
So I can't answer that, except that one popped out of my mouth. Here's when I first heard "How Could You Be." Peter and I are standing in the
kitchen.
No, we're in the back. We're waiting to go on stage in Tahunga at this theater.
Was this the Fahrenheit 451?
We were playing with Fahrenheit 451.
Sunline Tahunga, that's right. I'll tell that story.
Just quickly. On the marquee, on the outside, it said Firesign Theatre next week, marquee chimps. There was nobody in the audience.
Yeah.
You would have been a big crowd.
No,
It was playing Fahrenheit 451.
We were the
so we played in
first
front
act.
of
It
the
was
street.
the last vaudeville act.
And we changed in a barber shop down the street.
Next door.
Barbershop
Next door. So Peter and I are standing backstage.
Good old
Not backstage, but in the aisleway,
there
next
was
to
no
the
backstage.
stage. It's theater. And Peter said, I think we ought to call the next album, How Could You Be in Two Places at Once When You're Not Anywhere at All? And I said, Peter, we gotta go on. It's too long.
And it came to me, and Phil Proctor was renting a house in Encino. When that came to me originally, I was standing in the middle of the kitchen doing something, and it just came out. I sang it, and then I mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
Waiting for the Electrician. I was in before Firesign began. When I was in Europe, I was on a Ford Foundation artistic fellowship sort of thing, and after that, I went to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam was really interesting then. It was this very interesting.
LSD was being
was legal, and it was just beginning to
disseminated.
It was a crazy time, and very, very naive and interesting. And I'm sitting on the roof with some friends at night watching the canals or something like that, and I had written a movie, or a title for a movie called Waiting for the Electrician, and it was going to be taking place with people just lighting matches and talking to each other. I was a bit avant-garde at that time. It was an awful idea, but it was just an idea. Right? And there was this guy, Robbie, that was a friend, and he said, I've got this thing I'm writing, Waiting for the Electrician. And this Dutchman says, or someone like him. And I brought that title with me from Europe. That was straight off of there.
That we had the title before we wrote a word of the album. We knew we were going to write a piece called Waiting for the Electrician, or someone like that.
And that's where we got Holy Grid and all that stuff we went.
But we did do that improvisation in the student union at UCLA, based on that title, where we pretended that we were an expatriate.
The Bulgarian National Orchestra in exile.
In exile.
That's how we appeared.
And we didn't speak English.
No,
so we did this presentation in mime. dressed in black.
Yeah, it's the last time.
Let's see.
And bozos? Remember what we first called bozos?
We'll be Hieronymus Bosch in a moment, but Faust.
But Faust.
No, then there was. No, it was
Think
the
about
death, the death and transmogrification of Saint Beeple, the macrocephalic
Oh,
clown.
you're right. That's right.
Saint
The one-
Beeple,
the
the
one I said was
macrocephalic.
what dwarf was supposed to be.
Will be Hieronymus
Hieronymus Bosch
Bosch.
in just a moment with Faust, that's right.
Bozos is the first one where we actually just, it came out of a character's mouth first, and then we made it.
I think we're all bozos. Buses. You're right. That's right.
Yeah,
and then designing bozos as being berserkers, what was Beaners, berserk. B-O. I don't know what the O was.
Boogies.
Boogies, beaners,
Beaners, boogies, zips,
Zippers,
berserkers.
and
Beaners,
others.
boogies, zips, berserkers.
Something like that.
Still works. Still works.
Well, what's interesting about it is my roommate and I were trying to figure out, after listening to at least 2, maybe 3 of your albums, what the title had to do with anything that was in the album itself, and we never could figure it out. So now I know why.
Yeah, that's exactly why. However, the conventional explanation of "Don't Crush That Dwarf" is actually "Hand Me the Pliers." Is actually the guy who lived behind us, David Grimm, who did the music for Nick Danger, and died shortly thereafter,
heart condition,
30 years of age, or he'd likely still be with us.
Yes,
David Grimm. Wait a minute, I lost my track.
Oh, you were talking about the origin of bozo? No, pardon me, of Don't Crush That Dwarf.
Don't Crush That Dwarf. Well, whatever.
Long time.
David Grimm.
David Grimm.
I know he accompanied Nick Danger.
But remember, it was very common in the early rock and roll days
How Can You Be?
to have non sequitur titles for albums. We weren't the only one. There were a lot of, what's Anthem to the Sun mean? Is there a cut on that album called Anthem to the Sun? I don't think so. I don't think there's any cuts on it. The Grateful Dead has only played one song.
And all these things, Waiting for the Electrician, How Can You Be? They're thematic to the albums. They really are.
Yeah, sure.
I know what I was doing. That's exactly what I was saying. Grimm had a television set, black and white, television set, with no tuning knob, like many people did. He had a pair of pliers on top of the television, which he changed. Don't crush that dwarf, my friend. Hand me the little pliers. I can change my way.
That's standard bureaucrat.
Also, once we came up with the title, or come up with these titles, we would start to think in various ways about what it meant. What does this mean?
Yeah.
And one of the things was that we heard that they hired little people to work inside the wings of planes during the Second World War, so they could put rivets in the planes. So, in other words, utilize people who are different from we are and smaller we are. Was another justification for that. But the reason that
those very dwarves, right, that worked inside the fuselages and the wings at Boeing and Lockheed, half of them were became the Munchkins and the other half joined a sex circus.
That's true.
It was their sex circus, The Wizard of Oz, or Help the War Effort. That's basically kind of the 40s to me.
The most obvious thing on Don't Crush That Dwarf is I'm sure everybody just figured it was a pot joke. That you were.
I never thought.
Oh yeah, the pliers. Don't crush that dwarf. Hand me the pliers. Hand me the whole. Yeah. See?
Oh, that's right. Because we used to use Yeah, which reminds me, I just want to mention this, which is, we were talking about this yesterday. There was a large group of people that still believe to this day that the Firesign Theatre got stoned and went into the studio and improvised the album.
Didn't you mean? We didn't. We didn't.
Really? There were people that said, yeah, you guys were so stoned, you just went in there and had a great time, made those albums. I said they were scripted. No. I said we worked weeks, hundreds of hours
months
on the script.
Oh,
months.
God.
You just went in there and got high. And I said,
it took about 6 weeks.
40 hours a week.
It was a great technique because we could write, since we had really under this wonderful contract that John, what's his name, set up for us.
Originally there was
Spoken Arts contract.
Yeah, but we got that originally through Gary Usher. They just thought we were a theater group.
Oh, okay.
So they gave us a soundtrack album contract where there's no cost for studio.
Yeah, so we could write go into the studio, lay some stuff down. We might not have even finished the album, and then go back and inspired by what we had done and what we heard, what was beginning to take shape, we could write some more. It was a wonderful process.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention, and how can you be in two places at once when you're not aware at all? Which is like when you're talking on the radio and somebody's listening to you and you're really just in the airwaves. That's what it always meant to me. Or even the records, the same thing. Nick Danger is on that record because we were fired from a radio show that we were doing. They changed the format to, I think,
Country and Western.
Rabbinical country western.
Yeah.
And so, and we were going to do Nick Danger.
Lubavitch hip hop.
So it ended up on the record instead. Oh my God. But it was great at that time to be able to have these outlets.
We were going to do a show called. I guess it was just the Firesign Theatre show, but the inside show was called 23 Skid Row.
Yeah, that's right.
There was the four of us. We lived at 23 Skid Row. It was like that kind of show where somebody knocks on your door and they come and visit you, and it was that
Allen's Alley,
the Allen's Alley sort of show. But and then in the middle of that, we decided to write this thing called Nick Danger.
And we were going to do it in this big Masonic, not Elks Hall, this gorgeous place. We had it all set up, and they just changed the format.
Oh my God.
There is a big Lubavitch DJ in L.A. What's called K in a Circle. Isn't that what his name is?
Oh, is that Circle? Yeah, K in a Circle, right.
Anyway.
Okay. Anything else specific? Yes.
Well, are you?
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just wondering if you had other names before the four of you agreed on Fireside Theatre and where the name came from.
No, I named him.
Before we walked into the studio, before the four of us walked into the studio together, Peter said, "Do you mind if I call you the Oz Firesign Theatre?"
Yeah,
we looked at each other and said,
"Okay."
Well, Firesigns.
Yeah, exactly. We couldn't use Oz because Walt Disney had the rights to the Oz stories to do Return to Oz or something, and so they sent us
No, they called me. They called me on the phone. They said, "I'm so and so from Disney, and you can't use Oz as part of your name because we own it." And I said, "Okay, are you the Disney company?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, we're the Firesign Theatre, and we own the." There was this pause. And they had a lot more money and it was a good thing too. Oz Firesign.
Yeah, even more confusing than it is for people anyway. Right?
So it's true all of you are Firesigns?
Yeah.
We're
We're farce signs, I think. Yes. An Aries, a Leo, and two Sagittariuses.
Left leg, right leg.
Right.
Yes.
So, any plans for
No.
high school literature class study guides to compete with Wuthering Heights?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We are going to publish Firesign Theatre radio plays and one acts so that people will be able to do it, and we're going to publish the full script to anything you want to, the entire play. So yes, we are going to get out there and make our stuff available.
Yeah, the actual script of Anything You Want To has, I think, 11 appendices, an extremely long introduction, and about 1,000 notes.
Yes.
Yep.
And so the entire text is double what you'll ever hear on stage.
Or that you would ever want
to hear.
However, we keep trying to work out how to work the critics into this. We're still trying to work that part
We've
out.
actually moved a step closer because the man who produced the Dear Friends album and the series of shows, Bill McIntyre, is back working with us, particularly working with Peter. He lives down in Dunsmuir. Shall we tell the story, Pete?
Go ahead, yes, please.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill, this only happened maybe a month ago or so. New guy moved into the trailer court where Bill works. Bill's a videographer. New guy seems like a great guy. Everybody in this trailer court tends to have an odd story. This guy's odd story was, of course, that he had been captured by aliens at one point or another, dead serious.
Yeah, right. It's a great story.
Bill goes on and on, avoiding the guy basically, and then one day, Pete,
Well, one day, Bill had been saying to him, well, I'll tell you a story. I'm a videographer. I can put you on tape. The guy comes walking up and Bill says, this is the time. We're going to do it, right? He said, yeah. And the guy started to wheeze and died of a heart attack in front of him. At that point. Fell right down, died of a heart attack within a minute.
Bill said, wait, I'll get my camera.
I'll
And
get
the
my
guy started
camera.
Going, oh, great.
So the aliens blew up the chip in his brain.
Someone had put a chip up his ass.
True story. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that somebody is not to get you.
Why were we talking about this?
I don't know, but I keep it to myself. Don't everybody.
I have the Firesign Theatre's Big Mystery Joke Book, which was given to me as a gift by my blind friend Hillary, who turned me on to you guys. And my husband, we were going to bring it with us, and I had it down in the kitchen. He moved it upstairs because he was afraid it would spill coffee on it. And I've had this thing since like 1976. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's, so I didn't get a chance to bring that, and that's my regret. So I'll have to come back up and do the Kirkland shows with you guys.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, okay.
But we also, this is the one thing that my friend Hillary and I listened to your albums repeatedly, looking for those hidden messages, like all side A's in a row, and then all side B's in a row.
Oh my God. It was improvised.
Yeah, and it's like, and we were looking for that hidden meaning, and we would sit there with the turntable and backwards track it and stuff like that, and it's like, Phil dead. No,
You can't get that quality stuff anymore.
That's really true.
We did all this crazy stuff with the records, looking for all these hidden meanings. And is there a continuous story on all the sides?
There is.
There finally was, but there couldn't have been before we started it, because we didn't know we were going to do. We almost didn't do a second record.
No.
It was John McClure.
That's it. John McClure
who
went in
saved
and
our
said,
lives
you
in Colombia.
gotta keep these guys on
So
the
we were
label.
right in, I was a small child and he was like 25 years
Were
old.
you? Yes, it evolved into a story. It's really the Odyssey, like every other male
Just
story.
kind of like
story.
Transmogrified and transmorphed over
But
time.
I remember more than once the four of us would sit around the table and a line would come out and we would say, wait till they hear this.
Yeah.
Wait till they hear this. Because there were secret messages. You don't understand now anything that Bob Dylan is talking about. But at the time, everything was a secret message.
Watch your parking
God,
meters.
watch your parking meters. The
Yeah.
pump does work as a vandal stole the handles. What? That was all that stuff. And the Beatles were full of secret. Peter did the astrological rubber soul. It was one of my favorite things that Peter ever did on radio. This is what he did on Radio Free.
Because I recall
Yeah, there were 12 cuts on the album,
Yeah,
right?
on the American.
American album, and I assigned an astrological Aries through, to each one of them, explaining, of course, that each one had all of the attributes of the astrological sign. It embarrasses me.
Let me just insert something.
Yes.
I was the producer of Radio Free Hours.
Right.
And our biggest problem was filling time, and that filled a hell of a
And we used to read tarot over the air.
Oh, you used to read
three-card tarot. You produced it. You let it on the air. People call up and I do 3 cards: your past, your present, and your future at your present level of will and desire. That was the thing. I'd throw them down and I'd read them, and people, you'd hear their pants dropping. They were just also, how did you know?
Radio Free Hours was, I think, also responsible for Ravi Shankar's great success in America, because very often they just put on a raga that would go on for a half an hour.
And leave. The last part of the show. Goodbye. Get on the motorcycle and get the hell out of it.
We had to be on the air for 3 and 4 hours at a time.
5 days a week.
Nightmare. Was it 11? Was it 10 to something?
I don't know.
It ended up being from 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
5 nights a week.
Yeah.
Peter and I wound up living at, what was that restaurant down the way? I forget what it was.
Our neighbors.
Yeah.
Not Tortabagies, wasn't it?
No. I mean, we put so much time in, and we loved it. I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is so hard. This was like, oh my God, we're on the radio.
Yeah.
And we just took it for granted, right? It was where we were, it's what we were doing, and
we felt like we were inventing something because when all of a sudden then when we also had a recording contract, which we all remember was like God had appeared to you if you had a recording contract. We had one. And we were our competition was Bill Cosby or Bob Newhart or
George Carlin.
George Carlin even just barely
started right.
And nobody
Nichols and May.
Nichols and May were as hip as you got, and the Beyond the Fringe guys and the Englishmen. But we were the first people we thought that were going to make these big long stories, and we didn't do it until our second album. Really, did we try to make a story that's
right.
two
The first
sides
album
of
was
an
more
ancient
episodic
album.
with one.
Although
tale.
Electrician was a long
one
story.
tale.
That's a whole one side. That was pretty odd.
Right. But one side, it was when we went to album number 2 and tried to connect the two sides.
3.
That we
Well, it does connect because they're on the other side. They're speaking Chinese.
Well, for the first time, we went through the whole.
The hole in the middle of the LP was a very important thing to us.
And at that point, we were.
It was. How do you get to the other side of the record? It's complicated. You got to go through the whole black hole.
And this was far, far away from whatever Bill Cosby was doing.
And you know something? Nobody. What's always amazed me is that no one's ever picked it up. It's not like then the Firesign and then they produced. Well, they say we're an influence, but there's no other group like the Firesign turning out material like ours. Yeah. And one of the reasons I think is that the way we're organized, nobody else has ever put 4 people together, all equally sharing. No manager, no real contract, a real kind of creative anarchy, and it's cost us. Dearly sometimes. But what we get out of it is the fact we're 43 years along, and here we are. And that's pretty rare.
I think the only person who inspired by what we did, who has done long form, is Roger Gregg, the Crazy Dog Audio, which you're probably not that well acquainted with, over in Ireland. And he created, I think David.
He's an American who went to where he could do it.
He's from Detroit, and he's in Ireland. He did stuff on the radio for many years, but he also, it turned out, some wonderful adventures that were on long form. Still not as realistic as our stuff.
And all by himself. I mean, he wrote it by himself.
He wrote it by himself, and he did
We had
the
to
music
agree every line in those original classic pieces.
Every
word we had to agree on.
Every
If one person
comma.
held out, it didn't get in, and it was always better on what we finally agreed on.
But what was also interesting, the aspect of improvisation that happened was that we would spend days sometimes at a sticking point arguing about either where it was going to go or a turn of phrase or something, and it was exhausting and frustrating, but we also kind of honored it because we knew that we were like the witches in the making the brew, throwing in the beak.
I thought of this the other day. There was an almost religious acceptance of something called being in a group.
Yeah.
The fellowship.
It was
the band.
Mindless fellowship, we called it at one point. Remember?
Well, no, that's more mass religion to me, mindless fellowship.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is the fact that there was the secret messages were being passed by people as commercial as the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all these people that we all, like you, were playing in our minds at least, trying to look for connections. We were all desperately trying to look for connections. As I mentioned before, we were scared shitless.
Yeah.
And we got to play with that, I think, more than any other artists of that era. I don't think anybody got to do what we actually got to do. And the way we did it was by honoring this weird idea of a group. That a group to us was something where there was no leader. It's like Kat's question about power. Our idea was that there was no power over us. That our power was only in agreeing on something among the 4 of us. And there was never anybody. There's been periods of time where one or the other of us has taken the lead on something or this and that. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It all gets down to the fact that if it's going to be called Firesign Theatre, it's every word has gone through all four of these heads, and we all have the right of veto. Each one of us has the right of veto.
And we exercised it a lot.
But what I wanted to say also about it was that we sometimes have these long discussions and everything. Finally, we agree on what we're going to take in. And then we go into the studio, and something else would happen between us, and all that agonizing work would just go out the window, apparently. But of course it wasn't. It was just like laying a groundwork. It was like a blueprint for the work that came out of it. Since we were all we were concentrating so hard together, towards a comedic goal. It was
And
amazing
because
process.
of this odd recording contract we had, in which they never had to pay us any money really for anything, we got unlimited studio time. So when we were in the studio doing this, we could just stop. The engineers would stand there for hours as we continued the writing process in these expensive studios with
Jack Benny's studio.
Yeah,
Jack Benny. Yeah, we were working in the original Columbia studios.
Andy Williams, who is in fact this tall.
That's that big. He's gotten smaller as he's gotten older too. Been older a little bit now.
Yeah, we were in the part of that whole change. We started with Andy Williams, right? And soon we were scraping Moby Grape off the floor of the studio, or standing in the
Or
glass
Peanut Butter Conspiracy.
and watching the birds.
Yep.
They do what it was, Rosemary and Thyme or something like that, and then we'd come in and do our stuff. Same
Chad and
studio.
Jeremy.
Chad and Jeremy.
We did some stuff for.
So
we were right in the middle of those studios. It was great.
Another part of our
Phil
process,
Oaks, Mike Oaks.
Another part of our process that made it so fresh was that we'd do takes, and the take might not be perfect, but we liked it so much we left in the flaws.
Yes.
There'd be times when but if you listen to it carefully, it all seems right now. But sometimes we do a 3-minute take and just love it, and there'd be somebody saying, no, leave it. We're never going to get better.
Here's an example of a moment that's so small, probably only Phil and I know what it is. That when Phil was doing the sound effects for Nick Danger, he's doing the physical movement in the studio for Nick's voice. And Nick is walking into a place and it's shivery. What's your line? It's
instead of the cold marble floor?
Yeah, cold marble floor. And he cannot resist going, "Ooh."
I did it last night.
Which he does every time in the same spot, and that's an ad lib from that performance. It just is so funny.
But you know where we really started playing with those techniques is when we were doing live radio.
Yeah.
And we worked with a guy named the Live Earl Jive, who was a very mischievous technician, sound technician, producer, and he would drop in sound effects and music and things in the middle of something that we were doing.
In our earphones.
Yeah,
All of a sudden
in
a
our
plane's
earphones.
coming by,
We're
we have
going
to
over the air,
respond to it.
and we'd respond to it. And it would take us sometimes in an entirely different direction. It was a musical jazz improv type thing. Somebody do a riff. I'm telling you, those shows were such an interesting loosey-goosey combination of loosey-goosey and prepared material. That that we brought into kind of influence.
A lot of risk.
Free.
To totally not
Free,
knowing what we were
free.
going to do for an hour.
Yeah.
Lights on.
A theme would come sometimes. I remember we'd get together a little bit before the show, and some theme would emerge, and we go like, okay. And if you look at
Cheese Log Wars.
Cheese-
Remember that?
Cheese Log Wars.
Somebody said
Yeah,
Cheese Log. So
Wars.
Cheese Log Wars. Okay,
The
it's not Cheese Log
Tat
Wars.
show.
Why not?
What was the
That was
Olympics?
the-
The Sex Olympics. So we did the
The winter mud Olympics. We
Winter
did
Mud
the
Olympics.
Winter Mud Olympics.
Yeah, something would emerge, and that would become.
No,
the way.
that was Earl Jive. He put on a march in the middle of something.
Yes,
and he just
that's
went
right.
with it.
Yes.
Oh, no,
And
yeah.
here they come.
Those are the Hungarian underage sex Olympic team.
Yes, that's right.
But you know something? And Taylor and our friend Richard Metzger, who is a real good mind and has listened to all this stuff also, and is expert on, said, of those 72 hours, he said, of the whole thing, there's only 2 references I don't get. He said, it's completely green. He didn't know who Ferdy Grofé was, or he did, but he didn't think other people would.
This is a guy in his 40s.
Yeah. He knew who he was, but he said, I don't think they'll know who Ferdy Grofé is and George Matetsky. And I said, George Matetsky, the Mad Bomber. He said, but he said, it's completely fresh. There's nothing dated in the 70 hours or 72 hours.
You can find out about Richard Metzger if you go to Dangerous Minds.
It's wonderful. We're up there.
Great interview.
Big interview with us. Wonderful interview.
There's a little of just in terms of the ad libbing. Our engineer, when we recorded the last 3 albums we did for Rhino, recorded our rehearsals. And so I haven't listened to many of these, but there is really
Fred?
Fred, yeah.
Fred. The late Fred
No.
Jones, no?
No. We were
Bob Wayne.
at Bob Wayne's.
Oh, yes, Bob Wayne, yes.
So you can hear,
Still
there-
alive.
a particularly good one is our farewells from
Immortality.
Give me immortality or give me death. Those farewells, we go in with a script, and in 15 minutes you hear us evolve these things that we've individually come in with, and say, "Oh no, that you should say that, Peter. Now why don't we put those? Drop that." And this for 15 minutes,
Builds
this
it,
conversation
builds it.
for a 1-minute piece that comes out,
And then
it's
you
just
hear the finished piece.
magic at the end.
It's true. I mean, if you look at some of those scripts, I don't even know how. It was like they look like they're written in Chinese by the time we're finished because they're so overwritten. I mean, written over. They were certainly not overwritten. They're written over.
Fine line.
Joe.
Speaking of studio stuff, a couple of things. The quad mixes of I think it's Bozos and everything.
Yes.
Are those ever possibly maybe seeing the live day again?
They're done as 8-track.
The quad
I
mix.
think I can tell this audience. If DVD comes to fruition that would include everything you know is wrong, if you have a 5.1 system at home, look for an Easter egg.
Oh, okay.
And Bozos, do we have the four? Do we have the surround, the 4-track?
I have an 8-track of everything.
I have it,
But I mean, we mixed it at Warner Brothers Studios as a,
Boy, was that fun.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
Stuff.
Yes.
I have a question about your scripts. Is there any possibility that you might publish them someday, like the big mystery joke book? Although,
Peter touched upon this.
I mean, I think that would be.
Now, the intent is to do that, but not to,
Is that-
those two books were really artifacts of the 70s.
Yeah, they really
And that's all very well and good. But what we want to do is to release the material so other people can perform
In acting
it.
editions.
In acting.
Which is challenging because, they weren't written as plays per se.
Yeah.
I know, we do. Yeah, we have to
You guys have a show
perform.
tonight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we do. Isn't this it?
Was it 5:15?
Yeah, it's 5:15.
Here we go.
And thank you all.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Alrighty then.
Good to see you, Peter, on the stage.
Jim White?
Yeah, right. Very good.
I